In this video, we are going to talk about the cell components. The cell has four main components: plasma membrane, cell wall, the nucleus, and cytoplasm. In the next 5 odd minutes, we will understand what these components are and what functions they perform within a cell. Let's start with the plasma membrane first. Plasma membrane is the outermost covering of the cell, and it separates the cell contents from the external environment. If we think of the cell as a house, then the plasma membrane would be the door of the house, controlling what comes in and what goes out of the house. Obviously, we would want the things we like people we like, food we love, like pizza, to come in and the undesirable objects to stay out. And this is exactly what the plasma membrane does, and hence it's called as a selectively permeable membrane. That is, it selectively lets things pass through it. The next logical question anyone is going to ask is, how does this door work? How does it allow entry and exit? There are 3 primary mechanisms in which materials are transported in and out of the membrane. The first one, diffusion. Diffusion is a movement of gases from an area of higher concentration to a lower concentration till the concentration becomes uniform. Let's think of an example. The first thing that comes to my mind when I think of diffusion is air fresheners. You spray them into the room and bingo, the smell spreads across the room. Now, within the context of the cell, diffusion is used for removal of certain waste such as carbon dioxide. When carbon dioxide builds up inside the cell and the concentration of carbon dioxide is higher inside than outside, carbon dioxide automatically diffuses out of the cell. Amazing, right? Let's move on to the second mechanism now. Osmosis. Osmosis is the movement of liquids through a semi-permeable membrane from an area of lower concentration to higher concentration. It is similar to diffusion except that it happens only with liquids and needs a semi-permeable membrane. An example would be movement of water in and out of the cell. Diffusion and osmosis are both passive transport methods. They happen automatically without any energy used from the cell. But let's think for a minute. What can the cell do if it needs to inject a larger molecule which cannot pass through the membrane? We need something more than diffusion and osmosis, right? Yes, there is a third process called endocytosis, and it is used for the movement of large molecules which cannot move through osmosis or diffusion. So how does endocytosis work? The flexible plasma membrane engulfs food and water molecules present in the external environment by surrounding it and pulls them into the cell. The opposite can also happen, that is, sending large molecules of waste out is also possible, and it's called exocytosis. There is one key characteristic of plasma membrane which makes endo or exocytosis possible, which is flexibility. This flexible membrane is made of organic molecules called lipids and proteins. Let's move on to the next component, the cell wall. The cell wall is a rigid outer covering outside the plasma membrane. Wait, did we just not say plasma membrane is the outermost layer of the cell? Yes, that's true, except for plant cell. That is, cell wall is only present in plant cells. Cell wall is made of cellulose and provides structural strength to the plants. So why do only plants have cell walls? Let's consider 2 scenarios. If you take a cell and place it in a solution that is much more dilute than the solution inside the cell expands due to water coming in. Remember osmosis? But the cell wall will prevent it from bursting. Now look at the opposite case, scenario 2, where the cell is placed in a concentrated solution. The cell starts losing water through osmosis and there is shrinkage or contraction of the cell contents away from the cell wall. This phenomenon is called plasmolysis. If plasmolysis happens beyond a point, the plant will wilt and die. Since plants are extensively involved in water transportation from roots to the leaf, the cell wall is needed to protect the cells from bursting or dehydration. Let's move on to the third component of the cell, the nucleus. The nucleus is the brain of the cell and is made of 2 main things, the nuclear membrane and the chromosomes. The nuclear membrane is a double-layered covering enclosing the nucleus. The nuclear membrane has pores which allow transfer of materials between the nucleus and the cytoplasm. Chromosomes are the rod-shaped structures that look like threads in fact, inside the nuclear membrane. Chromosomes have information for inheritance of features from parents to the next generation in the form of DNA or deoxyribonucleic acid molecules. However, not all cells have a well-defined nuclear region with a nuclear membrane. Cells that lack a membrane-bound nucleus are called prokaryotes. Pro means before and karyotes mean a nut or a kernel. And similarly, cells with well-defined nucleus are called eukaryotes. Eu means well or well-defined and karyotes is again a nut or a kernel referring to the nucleus. Last but not the least, let's talk about the cytoplasm. The cytoplasm is a fluid or gel-like substance inside the cell. It contains many specialized organelles or little organs in it. Like the organs in our body, each organelle in the cell performs a special function. This concept of having specialized functions for each organelle is called division of labor. We will dive deep into organelles and their functions in a separate video. Hope you enjoyed this one.